There are dangerous jails in America. And then there's Fulton County Jail. It's a place whispered about in Atlanta's streets like a warning. A concrete maze where violence doesn't just happen. It waits. A building so overcrowded, so unpredictable, that even hardened inmates pray they never end up here. Tonight we race stepping behind the steel doors of the jail everyone fears, uncovering the secrets, the scandals, the power struggles, and the real-life events that transformed this facility into one of the most notorious detention centers in the United States. But before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoy true crime stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. This is a jail where cells meant for one often hold 3, sometimes 4, where deputies walk tears knowing that every step could trigger chaos, and where corruption scandals, inmate uprisings, and deadly overcrowding have turned the facility into the centerpiece of national scrutiny. But the real story isn't just about violence. It is about how Fulton County Jail became a symbol, a warning of what happens when a city's justice system collapses under pressure. And the deeper we go, the more disturbing it gets. Fulton County Jail sits on Rice Street, just a few miles from the heartbeat of downtown Atlanta. From the outside, it looks like any other high-security facility: tall fencing, razor wire, spotlights, fortified walls. But inside, it's a powder keg. Built in 1989, it was designed to hold about 1,100 inmates. Today, the population has surged past 3,000 more times than anyone wants to admit. The intake area, meant to process a few dozen people, now sees hundreds cycling in and out daily, each one adding tension to an already explosive environment. Report after report describes the same thing: overcrowded dorms, cells crumbling from decades of pressure, and a facility physically incapable of handling the chaos it's been forced to contain. Every officer, every inmate, every visitor who walks in feels it immediately. The atmosphere is thick with fear and unpredictability. To understand Fulton County Jail, you have to understand its greatest enemy: overcrowding. Imagine a dorm built for 40 men now housing 100. Imagine a cell block where movement is constant, arguments spark without warning, and the tension feels like a storm hovering just above every head. Inmates sleep on makeshift beds, on floors, against walls, anywhere space exists. Deputies constantly report that controlling these units isn't just difficult, it's impossible. When numbers triple, conflict becomes routine. Something as simple as who controls the shower or who uses the phone becomes a battle. Overcrowding fuels desperation. Desperation fuels violence. And violence, inside these walls, spreads fast. Over the years, Fulton County Jail has seen a series of events so shocking they've forced national attention onto Atlanta. Riots have erupted over food shortages. Fights have broken out in overcrowded dorms. And a disturbing pattern of deaths has emerged, many linked to mental health crises, lack of supervision, or medical neglect. Each event didn't just scar the jail, it defined it. One of the most disturbing cases involved an inmate found unresponsive in his cell, a case that sparked national outrage and forced the facility to confront its own failures. Investigators uncovered details that painted a dark picture of what happens when a system collapses under its own weight. And that wasn't the first or the last. If you really want to understand the chaos inside Fulton, start at intake. New arrivals are met with a scene that looks less like a booking area and more like a storm surge of humanity. Dozens of detainees wait hours, sometimes days, just to be processed. Officers are overwhelmed, tensions are high, and every person entering the system is already under immense stress. This is where rival gangs first cross paths. This is where frustration boils over. This is where deputies try to keep order with limited staff and far too many variables. Some inmates describe intake as the most dangerous part, not because of weapons or fights, but because nobody has anything to lose. Yet, the uncertainty fuels the chaos. Fulton County Jail is also notorious for something else: a deep-rooted gang presence that shapes nearly every aspect of life inside. Gangs don't just exist here. They run systems, control phones, manage contraband, and dictate the flow of daily life. Bloods, Crips, gangster disciples, and more recent hybrid crews all leave their mark on the jail. Inside these walls, alliances shift quickly and betrayal happens even faster. One wrong word, one wrong gesture, and an inmate could find themselves targeted by a group they never even knew they offended. Deputies describe the jail as a constant chess match where the players change daily and the consequences are immediate. When the sun goes down over Atlanta, most of the city settles. But inside Fulton County Jail, nightfall brings a shift in energy, a darker, heavier tone that even veteran deputies can feel before it starts. The night shift is where the real Fulton reveals itself. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead. The air stiffens. The noise inside the dorms changes from daytime chatter to something sharper, whispers, coded conversations, the sound of tension crawling beneath every bunk. Night is when inmates settle scores. Night is when contraband moves. Night is when officers patrol hallways knowing a single blind corner could change their entire career. In a jail as overstretched as this one, the number of deputies on duty never matches the number of eyes needed to watch over 3,000 people. One officer once described the experience as walking through a storm with a candle, just hoping the wind doesn't find you. Down a corridor lined with peeling paint and steel gates is one of the jail's most overwhelmed areas, the medical wing. This unit was designed to serve a small population, not the tidal wave of detainees that now crowds the facility. Nurses and medical staff work through back-to-back emergencies, injuries from fights, and treated chronic illnesses, mental health crises, withdrawal symptoms, and inmates who haven't seen a doctor in years. Some inmates come in with severe conditions that deteriorate rapidly under the jail's strained system. Others suffer from mental health issues that require specialized care. The facility simply isn't equipped to handle. Here, the line between treatment and neglect is razor thin. Every day is a race, not against time, but against capacity. As intake numbers rise, the medical wing becomes a pressure cooker, revealing the cracks in the entire operation. If overcrowding is the fire, mental health is the gasoline feeding it. Fulton County Jail holds a significant population of individuals suffering from mental illness, many arrested for minor offenses linked directly to untreated conditions. Once inside, the environment can break even the strongest minds. Isolation cells echo with shouts from inmates battling internal storms. Others shut down completely, overwhelmed by the noise, the fear, and the unpredictability. Deputies aren't mental health professionals. Nurses are under-resourced. Psych evaluations are stretched thin. In a place this tense, a single mental health crisis can ignite an entire unit. The numbing truth is that many inmates who need help the most are the ones the system is least prepared to support. And inside Fulton, that imbalance can be deadly. Let's start with what gets in. Contraband in Fulton County isn't just a problem. It's a full-blown underground economy. We're talking about phones, makeshift weapons, and drugs, all smuggled and using methods that would shock even the most experienced investigators. You might think that with all the cameras, searches, and strict protocols, nothing could get through. But you'd be wrong. The issue isn't weak security. The issue is that the jail is dangerously crowded, chaotic, and chronically understaffed. There are simply not enough eyes to watch every angle, every moment. And these smuggling operations thrive in the cracks. Sometimes contraband comes in through visitors. Other times, it's hidden in the mail. Inmates get creative, exploiting blind spots in the facility's design. And in the most troubling cases, corruption investigations have uncovered that some inmates got help from the very people paid to stop them. Inside Fulton, contraband isn't just an accessory, it's leverage. It buys you protection. It gives you influence. It shifts the entire balance of power between rival gangs. Getting rid of it would require a level of order and control that the jail, in its current state, simply cannot maintain. While inmates are fighting for their own survival, the deputies are fighting a battle of their own, one that the public rarely ever sees. Many officers join the force with good intentions. They want to help the justice system, keep people safe, and make a real difference. But the reality inside Fulton County Jail tests every single one of those ideals. Imagine this: a single deputy might be responsible for 60 inmates at a time, sometimes even more. In an environment where every second can mean the difference between life and death, that ratio is a recipe for disaster. These officers face unpredictable outbursts, sudden medical emergencies, and violent gang conflicts on a daily basis. And that's not even mentioning the emotional toll of witnessing so much human suffering up close. Some deputies go years without a peaceful night's sleep. Many burn out and leave the job entirely. The ones who stay develop a kind of resilience that's almost impossible to understand from the outside. But even the strongest person has their limits, and Fulton pushes those limits every single day. In the long, troubled history of Fulton County Jail, few incidents have captured national attention like the case of one inmate whose death raised urgent, unavoidable questions about the facility's conditions. The tragedy became a flashpoint, a symbol of everything that was spiraling out of control inside Rice Street. As the details of the case were released, they painted a picture of complete systemic failure, extreme overcrowding, not enough staff, massive gaps in supervision, and a total breakdown in communication that allowed a crisis to escalate far beyond what should have ever been possible. Suddenly, the world was watching. Community activists demanded answers. Investigators launched official inquiries. This wasn't just an isolated case anymore. It was a harsh spotlight illuminating every single flaw that could no longer be ignored. This marked a turning point, a moment when the problems at Fulton County Jail stopped being just a local issue and became a national conversation about the state of our justice system. As these stories of violence, deaths, and inhumane overcrowding spread across Atlanta and beyond, the political pressure began to mount. City and county officials were forced into the spotlight, stumbling to answer tough questions about funding, mismanagement, and the fundamental state of incarceration in Georgia. Public hearings grew heated. Community leaders demanded immediate reform. Families of inmates demanded justice and transparency for their loved ones. Of course, plans were proposed. There was talk of expanding the jail, relocating inmates, increasing mental health support, and hiring more staff. But change in a system this massive and broken doesn't happen overnight. And while the politicians debated in their offices, the conditions inside the jail remained volatile and dangerous. For the deputies, it felt like they were trying to fight a raging fire with a leaking hose. For the inmates, it was like waiting for a promise that was never going to arrive. The tension between political rhetoric and the harsh reality on the ground created a divide that no one could ignore. Every jail has its own internal economy, but the system inside Fulton County Jail is on another level. It's more complex, more desperate, and driven entirely by raw survival, not profit. In a place where official resources are incredibly scarce, everything becomes a form of currency. A single stamped envelope, a leftover snack from the commissary, a few minutes on a smuggled phone. Even a piece of information can be worth its weight in gold. Inmates who enter Fulton without any friends or allies quickly learn two hard rules: nothing is free and nothing is safe. The black market is woven through whispered deals, coded hand signals, and transactions that happen in the blink of an eye. Some prisoners barter for protection from gangs. Others trade favors just for access to a phone to call their family. Many align themselves with powerful groups not out of loyalty, but out of pure necessity. This whole underground system thrives precisely because the official structure of the jail fails to meet the basic needs of the people inside. Where the system fails, the inmates fill the void themselves, creating a parallel world where survival is negotiated every minute of every day. And for a new arrival, learning to navigate this hidden economy can be the difference between being left alone and becoming a target. Deep inside the facility, you'll find the isolation units. On the surface, they're quiet, but for the people confined within them, the silence is emotionally deafening. These cells are where inmates with disciplinary issues, high-risk individuals, or those needing separation from the general population are held. But isolation in Fulton isn't like the controlled solitary units you might see in documentaries. Here, the conditions are stark. Concrete floors, severely limited movement, and almost no human conversation. The only consistent sound is the echo of heavy steel doors slamming shut. Some inmates are placed in isolation for their own protection. Others are there for punishment. And some are there simply because the overcrowded dorms can't safely hold them anymore. For individuals already struggling with mental illness, this level of isolation can be devastating. Their own thoughts grow louder. The silence feels like it's tightening around them. Days blur into one another and the nights feel endless. Deputies walk past these doors knowing that some of the voices they hear from behind them are battling more than just the jail, they are battling their own minds. But without enough mental health staff or proper facilities, the isolation wing often becomes a place where people deteriorate instead of recover. Inside these walls, the line between safety and suffering is terrifyingly thin. While the public conversation often focuses on the men's population, the female inmates inside Fulton County Jail face an entirely different set of challenges, ones that are rarely discussed, yet are just as severe. The women here confront the same overcrowding, violence, and instability as the men, but many of them also carry deep histories of trauma, struggle with addiction, and have mental health needs that require specialized care the jail simply cannot provide at its current capacity. Medical needs often go unmet. Basic sanitation supplies can be inconsistent. Tensions in the women's dorms can erupt for reasons that officers rarely see coming. It could be jealousy, a personal dispute, a past connection from the outside world, or even a conflict over scarce resources like soap or clean clothes. But even in all that chaos, moments of humanity still manage to surface. Some women form small support circles, comforting each other during stressful court dates, sharing stories of their children, or offering advice to younger detainees. But these moments are fragile, easily shattered by the harsh reality of life inside Fulton. For many of these women, incarceration here isn't just a punishment, it's a brutal test of their resilience. Every trip to the courtroom begins long before a judge ever sees an inmate. And for those held inside Fulton County Jail, court transport is one of the most stressful parts of the entire ordeal. It all starts before dawn. Inmates are woken by deputies shouting names, cuffing wrists, and shackling ankles. They're lined up in narrow hallways, waiting. Some are headed to bond hearings, hoping for a chance at freedom. Others are facing serious charges. A few are about to find out if their lines be going home or disappearing even deeper into the prison system. The tension in the transport area is thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone is anxious. Everyone has something at stake. Once packed inside the transport vans, the inmates often sit in complete silence, replaying their charges, their choices, and their fears over and over in their heads. The deputies stay on high alert because even though the journey to the courthouse is short, an escape attempt or a sudden conflict can erupt without any warning. By the time the inmates finally arrive at the courthouse, the emotional weight of it all is written all over their faces. You see disappointment, relief, and a deep, unsettling uncertainty. And when their day in court is over, they return to Fulton, walking back through the same cold, steel doors, often carrying an even heavier burden than when they left. In recent years, Fulton County Jail has found itself in the national spotlight again and again, not because of successful reforms, but because of recurring crises that revive a conversation Atlanta has desperately struggled to escape. Shocking incidents surface online. Videos are leaked to the press. Families speak out about the neglect their loved ones have faced. Former inmates share stories of conditions that stir public outrage. Every headline becomes another chapter in a story that the county is desperate to rewrite. But for all the media attention, the core issues remain painfully familiar: far too many inmates, far too few staff, and a building that's decades past its intended lifespan. It's a community divided on what justice should even look like. The spotlight does force a degree of accountability, but it also reveals the hard limits of slow-moving reform in a place where change is needed immediately, and long after the cameras move on. Maintaining order in a place like Fulton County Jail isn't a routine job. It's a daily battle. Deputies and staff work under conditions that would cripple even the most modern facilities. The sheer number of people packed inside creates a constant, simmering pressure. Officers patrol the units, radios crackling, their eyes scanning faces, reading body language, trying to sense the tension before it explodes. Sometimes they succeed, diffusing a conflict with just a few words. Other times, they arrive seconds too late. Every part of the day is strained. Meals are rushed. The line for medication stretches down the hall, longer than it ever should be. Programs designed to offer inmates a path forward, a way to rehabilitate, rarely run at full capacity. There simply isn't enough staff to manage them. What sets Fulton apart is this pressure cooker effect. Small problems become big problems in an instant. A simple misunderstanding can escalate into a confrontation. A confrontation turns into a fight. A fight triggers a full-scale lockdown, bringing the entire facility to a standstill. Every single day here is a tightrope walk between control and total collapse. And for the people who work inside these walls, the goal isn't achieving perfection. It's survival, just like it is for the inmates. To truly understand the pressure inside Fulton, you have to step into the shoes of someone living it. The day starts early, often before the sun is up, when the harsh overhead lights snap on and officers begin their morning count. The noise builds quickly, the creak of metal bunks, voices shouting across the dorm, the clatter of plastic trays being stacked for breakfast. The food is basic and often a source of complaint, but it's one of the few predictable moments in a place defined by chaos. After breakfast, the waiting begins. Hours stretch into an endless expanse of time. Inmates sit on their bunks, walk restless laps in cramped day rooms, or stare at a small TV that dozens of others are also trying to watch. Some units have phones, some don't. Every call is expensive, closely monitored, and frequently cut short by arguments or time limits. As the day wears on, tensions rise. Personalities clash, alliances shift, and boredom, the most dangerous spark in an overcrowded jail, fuels irritation. Lunch comes and goes. Fights break out. Lockdowns are announced without warning. Medical emergencies bring everything to a halt. Count after count punctuates the day, resetting the jail's tense rhythm. When night finally comes, inmates return to their bunks if they're lucky enough to have one. Many sleep on thin pads on the cold, hard floor, their bodies wedged between other bunks. Sleep is never deep. The noise never fully stops. And then morning arrives, starting the cycle all over again. For all the violence and disorder, there's another side to Fulton County Jail, a quieter truth buried beneath the chaos, one you rarely see in headlines. Not every person here is hardened. Not every officer is cold. And not every moment is dark. In between the noise, there are small, powerful fragments of humanity. These moments remind you that this isn't just a facility. It's a place housing real people, individuals shaped by their circumstances, their upbringing, their trauma, or sometimes just a single, terrible decision. Some inmates spend their days writing letters home, clinging to the hope that someone will write back. Some find an escape in books passed from hand to hand, tear to tear, disappearing into another world for a few chapters. Others form the most unlikely friendships, not alliances for power, but genuine bonds forged from a basic human need for connection. Even here, people crave that. Deputies see these moments too. An inmate helping another to his feet after a fall. A small group sharing their commissary items with someone who has nothing. A young detainee listening quietly as an older inmate tries to steer him away from the mistakes that could derail his entire future. These moments don't erase the violence or rewrite the jail's reputation, but they do reveal something essential. Even in the hardest of places, humanity refuses to be extinguished completely. Visitation days are a collision of emotions, not just for the inmates, but for the families who travel from all over to see them. The line to get in starts early. Parents, partners, siblings, and children clutch their paperwork, hoping the visit isn't suddenly cancelled because of a lockdown or a staffing shortage. Inside the visitation area, the air is thick with feeling. Some inmates' faces light up when they see their children. Others break down in quiet tears, overwhelmed by guilt or just the relief of seeing a familiar face. Some sit like stone, guarding their vulnerability from the prying eyes of others. The visits often happen through thick, scratched glass, with voices crackling through faulty phone receivers. It's a distorted, disconnected version of human interaction, but for many it's the only connection they have left to the outside world. When the session ends, the walk back to the unit is heavy. Some feel motivated to change. Others spiral deeper into frustration. Most just slip back into survival mode. For the officers, visitation days are tense. More movement, more emotion, more risk. But they also witness something important, a powerful reminder that every single person inside is a story that began long before Fulton, and a story waiting to be written after. Behind the scenes of the overcrowding crisis lies another, often invisible pressure, the legal backlog. Public defenders in Atlanta are drowning under massive caseloads, sometimes juggling hundreds of clients at once. Many people sit in Fulton not because they've been sentenced, but because they are waiting for a hearing, for paperwork to be processed, for their single chance to stand before a judge. Some wait for weeks, some wait for months, some wait far, far longer than the system ever intended. This delay is a primary driver of the jail's population, keeping the tension at a constant simmer. Inmates live in a state of suspended reality, their futures uncertain. For the public defenders, it's a daily battle against time, with not enough staff and not enough resources to move cases forward. For the inmates, that uncertainty can break a person long before the justice system ever reaches a verdict. Inside Fulton County Jail, gang influence isn't just present, it's woven into the very fabric of daily survival. The rivalries of Atlanta's streets don't stop at the jail's doors. They intensify. Most inmates enter already aligned with a group, whether out of loyalty, fear, or the simple, stark knowledge that they cannot survive in here alone. Gangs fill the power vacuum created by overcrowding and understaffing. They enforce their own rules, control entire tiers, and can either mediate conflicts or ignite them. A minor argument between two people can explode into a multi-group standoff in seconds. Deputies are acutely aware of this. They learn to read the room as if every glance is a signal, every silence a warning, every gathering a potential riot. Investigators work around the clock, mapping alliances, decoding symbols, and trying to separate high-risk individuals. But Fulton's population is a revolving door. New arrests, new transfers, and new personalities are thrown into the mix every single day. In a place where tension never sleeps, the balance of power can shift dramatically, sometimes overnight. It's a living, breathing chessboard where every single move carries life or death consequences. Inside Fulton County Jail, contraband cell phones are a constant reality, a direct line from the inside to the outside world. Despite searches and crackdowns, they always find their way in. And when they do, the results ripple far beyond the jail's walls. Videos leak online showing fights, overcrowding, and the raw chaos of daily life. These phones are a lifeline for inmates desperate to contact loved ones without the high cost of official calls. For others, they're tools for crime and intimidation. But for the public, this footage is an unfiltered look into conditions we rarely see. The existence of these phones isn't just a security breach, it is a mirror reflecting the environment inside Fulton County Jail in real time. Every new leak reminds Atlanta that this facility is a pressure point for the entire justice system. One of the most misunderstood aspects of this jail is that many people inside haven't been convicted of a crime. They're in pre-trial detention, waiting for hearings, for trial dates, or simply for the court backlog to clear. Some can't afford bail. Others were arrested for low-level offenses but remain stuck in bureaucratic limbo. This creates an environment where people who should be released quickly end up enduring the same harsh conditions as those facing serious charges. The uncertainty and frustration take a massive mental toll. Deputies see it every day. Public defenders voice their concerns, and judges push cases as fast as they can, but the system is overwhelmed. For inmates, pretrial detention inside Fulton can reshape their entire outlook on life before a verdict is ever reached. In a place as volatile as Fulton County Jail, faith becomes a powerful anchor. For some, that means turning to religion prayers whispered at night or small Bible study circles in crowded dorms. Volunteers from local churches and mosques offer guidance and support. But faith here extends beyond religion. Some inmates find peace in writing, journaling their experiences to process the emotional weight. Others sketch, meditate, or simply cling to the hope of life outside these walls. Even deputies rely on their own belief systems and family connections to get through the psychological strain of the job. In a jail known for chaos, faith is one of the few things that can't be taken or silenced. It's a quiet act of rebellion, a survival tool, and a reminder that people are still fighting to hold on to something pure. Inside any jail, there are days when tension builds so high that one small spark can ignite chaos. In Fulton, that spark could be anything: a stolen commissary item, a misunderstanding, a rumor that spreads like wildfire. Deputies sense the shift immediately. Then it begins. Voices rise, crowds gather, and fists fly. A single conflict quickly turns into a full-blown disturbance. Officers rush in with shields raised as radios crackle with calls for backup. Inmates scatter, some trying to escape the violence, others pulled in by loyalty or fear. The air is thick with adrenaline and the noise is deafening. In these moments, the thin line between order and chaos disappears. It takes minutes to stop the fight, hours to restore calm, and days for tensions to settle. But every incident leaves its mark. In the end, Fulton County Jail stands as a reminder of something far bigger than one city or one case. It is a place where every choice carries a price, every mistake casts a long shadow, and survival becomes a day-to-day negotiation between hope and fear. Inside these walls, hundreds of stories unfold each year, some tragic, some inspiring, some still untold. And when the world looks at Fulton County, it doesn't just see a jail. It sees a warning, a crossroads where the system and the streets collide, where reality is harsher than rumor, and where lives can be reshaped in a single heartbeat. But remember this, behind every inmate number is a human being. Behind every locked door is a past, and behind every decision is a consequence that doesn't disappear when the lights go out. Fulton County Jail isn't just infamous because of who goes in, but because of what the place does to the people trying to survive inside it. So the question isn't just, why does everyone fear this jail? The real question is, what happens when a place meant to hold people accountable becomes a symbol of everything that is broken? As we step away from these concrete walls and steel bars, take a moment to reflect. These stories aren't just entertainment. They are warnings, lessons, and realities millions face every day. If this deep dive opened your eyes or made you think differently about the world behind those locked doors, do us a favor, help this story reach more people. Like the video, share it, and keep the conversation going in the comments. Your voice matters more than you think. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, the most dangerous prisons aren't always the ones made of concrete. Sometimes they're the ones we build around ourselves.